reckon you sure, well, this is you. This is me, my table. Little Missy sitting over there. I was thinking my other channel. Anyhow. Well, as you can see, I'm trying to do an updated version for the channel intro for products and stuff, and bring us a little more into the more current era of the crap. Although I don't know, it's a trial and error kind of thing. It's a hit and miss. I made like 6 or 7 attempts at this. This is the best of the 6. I still think it starts out just a hair too slow at the very beginning. And it's hard to time because you have to trigger each image as they come to get it to open. You have to come down to a little drop down menu, and then you click on the image so it turns on, and then you have to scroll up a hair to the next. And unfortunately, sometimes the scroll isn't as smooth as we would like, and as instantaneous as we would like. So the transition is choppy at best. And of course, then there's dealing with other issues and things like that. The crappy laptop and poor. I've got the equipment that I have, and I'm grateful to have what I got, and it's still running at the moment. Once again, yeah, no, one of those things that's cropped up over the years. Let's see if I can get the image up to it, because the downside of fiddling with anything on my channel is I screw with stuff. So obviously I usually have the down view. This is usually off because when I'm doing videos for my other channel, I'm doing reviews of game supplements or novels or something of this nature, and I might want to be able to do this sort of thing or go through this sort of thing, because that's the sort of thing we do. Anyway, right? What kind of books sit on your table at home? I'm just, I can just reach for these, and I got a couple of those, and I got a couple of these, because, who doesn't have a pile of this stuff sitting around? Right? I'm just saying. And then I got a whole bunch more over here. I got a folder, or a little tote thing full of crap over here, anyway, right? So, like I said, if I get the image to go up, here you go. This is the Black Knight. This is supposedly an alien satellite that's been witnessed in attempts at interaction with by various military and civilian agencies in the country or in the world, have not gone so well or been ineffectual at best. It's been around since the 60s or 70s. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what date that everybody agrees that they first noticed it, but they claim it's some kind of alien satellite. Most logically speaking, it's just probably a chunk of space junk that fell off of one of other whatever. I mean, it's hard to say what this thing is unless you can physically go out and get your hands on it, bring it aboard, and hold it up to the camera for everybody to see what a person, because there's a lot of people that believe that this thing is very large. The size of a city bus or larger. It's on par with the Hubble Space Telescope for bulk and size, but in a far lower orbit. Another thing that makes it interesting, because of the orbit that it's in, you would think that there'd be some kind of retrograde issues with it. It doesn't appear to be. It's self-correcting. It maintains the same place, the same position all the time, supposedly. That said, do you suppose if you and I were to miraculously win the lottery tomorrow, can afford to hire a jet plane to take us to go view this thing? Can we go do a flyby of this thing? Can we, it's far enough down in the atmosphere that we could potentially get close enough to it with an expensive enough jet plane that goes high enough? I know that there's been supposedly been some attempts by various militaries to take the thing down, and to no effect. The stories go that planes getting too close to it start having control issues and lose their electronics. So if this is a satellite, then obviously it's got some sort of countermeasures, anti-intrusion defenses on it. So it's designed to ward people off, warn you off, or to warn other equipment away from it, to try to otherwise somehow manage to avoid getting caught or hit or damaged. Now, is it actually an alien thing? Would you, if you were a highly advanced alien society, technology speaking wise, and you wanted to keep an eye, if you wanted to keep a controlling eye over any kind of thing that's got your, because let's be honest, what do we put satellites up for? We put up satellites for all kinds of things. Everything from spying on your license plates to controlling or putting space lasers in orbit. Right, mega friends? The Jewish space lasers. Look, my friends, if there was ever a crazy F in the civilian market out there that has a space laser or has thought about putting up a space laser, it's somebody like Elon Musk, who's also got the equipment and the people to do it if he wanted to. So, right, if I'm going to be an alien species and I'm going to, keep a close eye on whatever the interest is, putting up an artificial recording and monitoring sensor device, i.e. a satellite, makes perfectly good sense, right? My only issue with it would be why would it be so blatantly obvious? I mean, to me, that if you can visually get pictures of this thing, people will visually see this thing, supposedly, then it's not very stealthy. So apparently, if you put it up tens of thousands of years ago, that's another thing to take into account. Let's just say, hypothetically, it is an alien probe or alien satellite for doing whatever its purpose. But unless we can physically get our hands on it and test it for age, this thing could be millions of years old. This thing literally had been put into place, 30 million years ago. And we, as an intellectual species, have only developed a very tiny fraction of that amount of time. Very recently in that fraction period of time. So it's quite possible that the aliens have put this there and had no idea or no belief that we would ever evolve to the point where we would be able to figure out what it was. Otherwise, why wouldn't you hide it? I'm just asking. If you have this, I don't know, millions of years of advanced technological development under your belt, which pretty much everybody in this community all agrees that most aliens must be hideously more super advanced than us technology-wise, even though I would argue that's not necessarily the truth. Probably not the normal, it's more likely the exception to the rule than the actual rule. But let's just assume that they're millions of years ahead of us and advanced in technology-wise. Well, why would they not have, satellites that can disguise themselves or invisible, And we use that term loosely, of course, but as we well now know, that is quite feasible, an idea. All they have to do is figure out a way to warp, the light source around the object so it makes it disappear. It makes it something that it's not, right? So, and that's the simplest way of doing it, just a bit of smoke and mirrors kind of thing. It's a mirage kind of crap. The other more logical would be is to have it alternating slightly out of sync with our timeline. So if it's not exactly in our dimension, but right on the cusp of it where it's just kind of peeking in, you would tiny glimpses of something being there maybe. That said, once again, knowing the human nature of curiosity, now that we know this thing is here, you got to figure that governments, if they haven't already tried their level best to get their hands on it, and now washed their hands of making that because they've learned the hard way how bad of an idea that is, or it's not worth having. So that by definition can't be an alien object. Right? Sure don't look like any normal satellite to me. It looks like a piece of junk that fell off of something. But without having a size, something to compare us with size, it's hard to make that measurement. People sit there and say, oh, we compare the landmass, this, that, and the other thing. No, you can't. Not to the significant enough of a percentage to matter. Because we don't have anything. Now, if there was, Mount Kilimanjaro was poking up through the cloud cover down there, then you have at least mathematically speaking, some ground to work with. I mean, theoretically, you can base it on the size of the horizon and this and that. And there's a lot of technical jumble and crap I vaguely understand, but I do understand enough to know that it's a thing they can do. That they could figure out a considerable amount of information about it, but not to the level of detail that we would want. Right? So, is it a thing? I think it's something that people think. Obviously, it's up there because they keep taking these photos of it. Although these photos, and this one, you have to admit, this is one of the better photos I've ever seen. So they got it really close up to it, enough that they could then enhance the picture. And we see some level of detail here that make you go, we still don't know the scale of this thing, the size of this thing, because like I said, I've seen reports of size of a city bus to size of a lunchbox to the size of a freight train. So I mean, right, and it's far enough above the normal traffic routes that the average commercial pilots aren't going to run into this thing. You would need a high-level, high-scale, jet plane to get up there. And we currently have some technology. Once again, people like Bezos and frickin' Musk, have the space planes that if they wanted to go up next to this thing, they could very well do it. You know, maybe there's good reasons why they don't do it. I would like personally. I think I would like personally the idea that there's some kind of that there are aliens out there and that they are paying attention to us and that they are interested in our shit. But at the end of the day, you know, can you debunk this? I think it can. I think it can pretty much if they really wanted to. But how they can debunk it so we would believe it is another animal. Like I said, there's numerous photographs. There's dozens, hundreds. At least I've seen scores of them, many dozens of them over the years. A lot of them I have to watch because some of them will just be repeats of the same type of photo, the exact same photo, just in a different scale or something. But there are literally scores of these things out there by numerous different sources that identify something in the approximate coordinates and vicinity of this thing. And I've also seen reports that say this thing is in a fixed geosynchronous orbit, that it follows one specific point on the planet. And then I've seen reports where that's not true, that it's in constant motion, that it follows, it actually orbits against the planet. So, and then it alters itself. So it's like it's scanning the planet on a regular damn basis, taking full-on sensor sweeps of the planet, which once again would make sense. Another possible item, if it is alien technology in a way, it could be a ComSat. It could be an alien version of a communications link to the larger galactic whatever. So this way, the tiny little pilot ships that come in here and pop in and out all the time, this gives them some reference material. Or it could be that. It could be a marker buoy. It could literally be a navigation device for an alien empire or an alien species, that needed that or still needs it. Like I said, this could have been something that was put into orbit 10 million years ago. The other possibility that very few people talk about when it relates to the Dark Knight satellite is the possibility that this is solely human in manufacture. And what I mean by that is I have a growing belief that humanity's societies, civilization goes back far further than what our historians and our historical books are willing to allow it to go. I think the human beings have had numerous cultures raise, advanced civilizations rise and fall with natural catastrophes, if nothing else, over the millennia. It's not hard for me to see the growing evidence of settlements and civilizations and of countries preceding the Younger Dryas, or the sudden the last ice age melt-off. And it's important because it happened over a fairly short period of time, less than 100 years, and geologically speaking, that's a second. Less than a second, that's a snap of the finger. In our lifetime, it took a lifetime or two of people to endure all the BS that came along with it. But at the end of the day, I believe that there were, the biblical story of Noah is repeated on all the major continents, all major cultures that have descendants from that era, all have stories that talk about the great floods. And then we have physical evidence up in the northwest in America, for example, of massive sudden deluges of water, altering the very landscape of the planet. And we see that same evidence in the Balkans, or I mean, in the Red Sea, or not the Red Sea, but the Black Sea, where that connects there with is it the Bosphorus or whatever. A strait there. So at one point or another, and then of course the Mediterranean itself originally was a shallow basin lake that was capped off by a landmass there at the Pillars of Hercules that eventually either collapsed or broke or just wore down, and then allowed the ocean to flood and create the Mediterranean as we know it today. And that's based on stuff that the eggheads have been talking about for the last 30 years. So there's enough of them talking about it that I believe there's enough credence to say that's probably as good a guess as anything. Because that's one of the things about history in general. History in general is loaded with facts, but loaded with a whole lot of misinformation too, and misconjecture, and hopeful wishing, hopeful thinking. Right? Let's just keep that in mind. That that old adage that history is written by the victors. That's something to be said too, because once again, if you had a catastrophic event take place, and on the scale of the Younger Dryas, for example. So if we had an asteroid hit the planet of significant size, to do one of them, end life-ending events. So 95%. 98%, 99.9% of the population of humanity can be wiped out tonight, tomorrow, in 15 minutes, or 15,000 years. But eventually, it's not if, it's when. Once again, Earth's history physically shows that's happened a hell of a lot of times. In the age of in the great span of what is the age of the Earth is a drop in the bucket compared to us. So 20 million years go by since the last dinosaur ending dam event. Doesn't mean it can't be 15 minutes from now. You think I'm joking? You think I'm bullshitting you? It is quite possible for a meteor of a mile or more to get within pissing distance of Earth without any of us knowing about it. And the first inclination we might know about it is when it's burning itself through the outer satellite belt, and suddenly everybody wakes up to this huge ass bastard coming in from behind the moon or something, and then what do you do? And then what, right? So the possibilities are there that humanity has grown and receded numerous times over the lifespan of the planet. It's just like there's quite possible that another intelligent species could have evolved on Earth in the past, grown up and developed a culture, developed a society, developed technology, even advanced technology, and somehow became wiped out. Now, the odds that they all packed up and flew off to another planet, that's because that's not how shit works. Unless your planet's dying, you would have no reasons to do that. So even if they made colonization efforts to other places, there would still be descendants of the original, people still here, because otherwise something had to eliminate them. And there's a process of elimination is, nature gets you, or, we get you, i.e. we get each other. So in the case of the Neanderthal, for example, Neanderthal and the ancestors of modern man were on the ground at the same time. Yeah, but biblical people, yeah, because that's what God wanted you to have, is this sort of stuff. So back in the day, God's chosen and Mother Nature's creations were all sharing the same planet. Now, we either bred into them, bred them out of them, or killed them off. Or all three. Because once again, that's what we do. And that's what evolution does as a nutshell. right? If you think of all the species that we have currently on our planet now, how many species existed throughout the history of the planet that don't exist any longer? And many of those probably to our benefit, because been to our detriment if they still existed today. Can you imagine? I honestly, Jurassic Park, anyone? No, you could not have a viable human civilization with dinosaurs running around. It ain't happening. Nah, not without some serious defensive measures, and even then, you're going to be at a significant disadvantage. Humanity wouldn't tolerate it either. We would wipe the damn dinosaurs out. We literally would wipe them out. We would literally find some kind of virus, and figure out a way to kill them off. Because we do that with anything else that threatens us, or is too much of a nuisance. So yeah, it could be alien technology. It could be just space junk floating around up there that makes for a great story. You got to admit, it makes for a lot of what if. Uh, then there's it's alien, and then it's past human or alternate dimensional or something like this. And once again, why would you have it? Well, why do we have satellites at all? Well, why isn't there a whole slew of them up there? Well, why would they need to have a pile of them? If they have a really good satellite that's well enough advanced, we wouldn't need the thousands of satellites that we have in orbit either, if we had the right kind of satellites with a sufficiently developed technology that would circumvent the need to having many, many, many minor ones. Right? It's like spy satellites, for example. One of the biggest popular things for most governments that can afford to do it is to put up these satellites with cameras. The earliest versions of these basically were monitors for radio transmissions and things like that. And so they could tap in and eavesdrop into the enemy's communications. Well, that's not changed anything. And that's changed. We still do that stuff. So the most common one would be an expensive camera device that can be focused, and that's where you get I can get a photograph of a license plate kind of thing from space technology. And that was technology that was cutting edge in the 70s. So can you imagine what they're capable of today that you don't talk about? The level of literally sit there and read the fine print on somebody's pen while they're writing down on whatever while the pen's still moving, and you're in orbit, and then some. I mean, I heard the technology exists where not only could they watch you read the print on your pen as you're writing whatever it is you're writing, but they can listen in and hear the scritching and scratching of the pen on the page surface. Is that true? I don't know. There's no way for me to prove it is. No way for me to prove it isn't either. But technologically speaking, could we technologically develop that kind of technology? Why couldn't we? Should we? What does that ever got to do with anything? We could. We should, because we could. That's how it goes. Not we should if we could, kind of thing. So yeah, I like it, man. I think it's a great story. I would love to see more information about it. It's one of those dead end kind of conspiracy things, though, because they're so. I've seen a lot about it, but once again, not so many people have the technology to get up close enough to this thing to pursue it. I mean, it's a low enough orbit that can we not park another one of our observer satellites next door to it so we can observing whatever it's doing? I mean, wouldn't that make sense? Or are we already doing that? Do we have a government? I mean, honestly, how many satellites do the government have up there, and what are they tasked to do? I mean, that would be something to me that would be, I think I would be worth having if we have no idea what the hell it's for and what it's doing. Meanwhile, I still believe that the military has made attempts to acquire this thing. At least they've had to try to get close to it. And that's how they know they've got problems trying to get close to it. Like I said, any commercial pilots, very few of them can fly that high, and so when they do see it, it's an extreme range event. But the rare instance where somebody's got fairly close to this thing, the reports is they suffered a lot of the issues with their power and the communications and control. So right. If so, how much do we know about it? I know our technology is pretty sophisticated, and it's growing more sophisticated every day. So who's to say what they can do now that they couldn't do in the 60s and 70s and 80s? You know, I'm just saying, what do we know? And even if they don't know much, that's still something, you know, just be honest, we don't know. Well, they don't want to say that they know or don't know because then they would have to acknowledge the thing is there. And that they know that there's something, that there's a thing there, but they don't know whose thing, why it's there, and what it's doing. And that probably bothers them more than anything else. Right? Meanwhile, if it isn't, and they have managed to get close to this thing and it's just space junk, well, tag it as such. Just make it what it is. Say it's a broken piece of whatever, and call it a day. You know, send a vacuum. I don't know. We don't have a space cleaning service yet, so we can't exactly send somebody up there. I got an itch up here. I can't get to it. Kind of buggering me a little bit. You get one of those where you get into a spot. It's just right in the spot where I don't. And I got 3 damn back scratchers. Of course, none of them in here where I can need one. Anyway, so just thought. Just one of those curiosities that have me going, what the F? What the F, man? What the F? You know? What the F? It just irritates me to no end.